Okay, I got a lot of broadcasts coming. I have some really good broadcasts been working on, but what's more important than all these broadcasts is to continue to expose Macrobius for the fraud and the charlatan he is. And so this is not even a continuation of my last broadcast exposing Macrobius. This is a special edition mocking Macrobius. This is Macrobian Mockery. And or Mockery of Macrobius. And the reason I am doing this special edition of a complete attack on Macrobius is that he made a statement so provocative that I felt compelled to denounce him for it today. And he made this on Thomas 777's Telegram or Substack or some such place. I get so many notifications that, like everybody else, I am notificationed out. So he made a statement to the effect that conservative white men can recognize each other by the way they walk and talk, basically, which is a no-brainer that makes you wonder if he's even a midwit. But then he goes on to say, their conservative men are like wolves, and they growl. You can hear their growls. And I said, wait a minute. I said to myself, I didn't say it aloud. If I had been in his presence when he made such a egregious statement, shut up, Kenny. I would have said aloud. I would have immediately verbally confronted him, but I wasn't in his presence when he made this statement. So I was unable to confront him as I would have had I been there. And I said, wait a minute, to myself again. We can start this all over again. To myself again, I said, wolves don't growl. What is he playing at? And this is where we get into the whole minutia of the artist formerly known as Macrobius, or what else? He is Theodosius Ambrosius on Twitter, or some such individual of that nature. And wait a minute, we get down to the nitty gritty here. We get down to the basics. Wolves don't growl. And, a lot of people haven't been around wolves, so they wouldn't know this, and they just let it pass. But we are going to break down the whole background behind this very egregiously false statement that constitutes the entire basis of our case against Macrobius. Now, they say, what do wolves do? Wolves snap and they snarl. Why? Because dogs growl all the time, right? Dogs growl, consistently. Chloe growls. I can make Chloe growl right now. Come here. See? Dogs growl all the time. And it's not indicative of anything. Now, this is where we have to break down Macrobius's intent in an autistic fashion. In other words, we have to deeply delve into what Macrobius might have meant by wolves that growl. Because is he talking about white conservative men like himself who allowed, they were directly involved with selling out the birthrights of their descendants and their, whatever their progenitors left them as well, and selling out the rights of people they didn't even know too. There was nothing in the 90s that individuals like him were not willing to surrender. They were entirely willing to surrender anything. People wouldn't even ask them to move, and they'd move. And that's because, as Ciaran says, and I think it's the temptation to exist, you're either attacking or you're dying or you're defending. There's no middle ground. And for some reason, they got into this defense stat point, which happens immediately before you're defeated. Defense happens before you're defeated. That's why there's no such thing, as I've said before, as self-defense. But you get into this mess that Macrobius is in, and then you understand what goes on with Macrobius. And then, so what's he saying when he thinks maybe he really thinks wolves growl? and maybe that's the gist of it. Or maybe he is saying that these people were wolves and they growled because growling is an impotent action or is an impotent demonstration of frustration and unhappiness with the status quo or what have you. So it's hard to say which of these statements is correct and most accurately describes what Macrobius is trying to convey. But the bottom line is wolves don't growl. What do? They snap and they snarl, and they snap and they snarl before they attack. They snarl before they leap. They snarl before they try to, fight. Basically, a snarl is not a impotent act of aggression or conveyance of irritation or impatience. It is the prelude to violence, which is, something a white man probably doesn't understand. Because one thing Macrobius has to say is that he's never been in proximity to any violence. Honestly, I would pay a large amount of money to see a bunch of, shall we say, disprivileged young joggers chase him through the streets. See how long he does. How well he does with his extended brain power and his know-it-all attitude, how far he goes or makes it down the street before he comes up with some clever ruse to defeat them, because his white brain is so superior. So this brings us to the question about Macrobius. Like I said, this gets down to the bottom line of the matter. The fundamental, this is the fundamental purpose of trying to understand Macrobius, because he does this, and he's done this multiple occasions. I'll talk about another example that I was going to go into, and this is, you will pardon me as I have a strange autistic interlude. And then we talk about Macrobius' statement on my page recently, where he says, he posts some stupid meme like, the problem with smart motherfuckers is let's just read it. It's so asinine. It's so asinine that we have to read it to completely analyze it. Okay, let's see. We get this right up here. It's very interesting how Macrobius writes this, and he says, he posts this. Where is it? Oh, he posts this Tesla meme. The thing about smart motherfuckers is they sound like crazy motherfuckers to dumb motherfuckers. Now, again, I'm having a strange artistic interlude here, so we are going to try to fully analyze that statement. Why would he post that on my thread? Is he trying to say that I am the smart motherfucker who, appears to be a crazy motherfucker to most of the people on the forum? Or is he saying that he is the smart motherfucker who appears to be the crazy individual to myself and my fans? And that's why, so he is the guy who is actually the really smart guy. So this is one of those tests of the imagination, or of the comprehension, rather, comprehension, to understand where is he coming from here, and to who is the smart motherfucker in the equation. And to this we must ask, does Macrobius think that I think he's not smart or he's crazy? To which the answer would be no. I don't think Macrobius is crazy. But I imagine a large swath of the individuals around Macrobius, and indeed a large swath of the individuals on the circle of crust, and a large swath of the cusp Zoomer millennials in these circles, such as they are, believe Macrobius to be mentally ill, and I don't believe Macrobius is mentally ill. I don't think Macrobius is crazy. I think Macrobius is senile. There's a difference between being mentally ill and senile. He is experiencing early dementia, in my opinion, and not all the time, but he is trying to basically use his early dementia, and he's trying to use whatever exercises his doctors are giving him to enhance his cognitive function in order to, do this nonsense. So the reason I'm saying all this is because, Macrobius, wants to be considered crazy because, in that case, he can fit into an old classical tradition, but nobody's saying he's crazy. He's not crazy. What I am saying is far more damning. What is the old one about? Oh, well, I'm not even going to quote that mean. You may accuse a man of many things, call him this and call him that, but call him a certain thing, and he recoils in fear, and says, "Oh, I've been found out." Well, call Macrobius many things. You can call him crazy, and he doesn't mind, but call him a midwit, call him middle brow, and that's something that he can't take. That's so he wants to shift the parameters of reality and make believe that I called him crazy or I said he was insane. I never said any such thing. I said he was senile. I said he was experiencing symptoms of early dementia. And this is why he can't be taken seriously. And you just can't trust Macrobius. This is why I brought it up. Even if Macrobius was fully sentient, which he is not, he makes posts about these guys recognizing each other and recognizing the white guy at the copying machine was a conservative. It's like, so what? You are all united in selling out your progeny. This is why I tell individuals not to trust old white men. I said, well, what do you mean don't trust old white men? Whatever. So the bottom line is my mentors were old white men old white men like Macrobius stabbed in the back. And this is why I know that you shouldn't trust them. Macrobius has been, people tend to forget, Macrobius was a scoutmaster. Macrobius was an Eagle Scout. Macrobius was privy in proximity and totally aware of the Boy Scouts grooming issue and the fact that the whole organization existed and was brought about to be a grooming uh, deal for young men. And, obviously the sexual component is only one part of the overall grooming process. It's very interesting. I'm again going to stray away from the topic at hand, talk a little bit about the. I was looking at progeny of a wealthy family that I know. I've only met him once. I know the family more than I know him. And he has a Facebook page, and just kind of interesting that he is turning, getting older. Everybody's getting older with middle aged. Think of him as a young guy, and find out he's not a young guy. And the kind of people that go to a fundraiser for the Clinton Foundation, that type of individual, well off individuals. And I just was, this is a genuine elite, has some genuinely elitist blood in him. And I was thinking, boy, what went wrong with you? Because you're a broken individual. And that's why you're gay, basically. And he's actually gay. And it's like, whole people are not gay. I would say there are some whole bisexuals out there who still have a few screws loose, but can function as a whole. But there are no fully gay individuals who can claim to be whole. And consequently, I was just thinking about that in terms of the overall effect the whole issue of pedophilia and grooming, largely through the Boy Scouts, way more than the Catholic Church have, been engaged in the entirety, in fact, of the last 100 years. And then Macrobius admits openly to be a part of this tradition, and he wants to act like he is all knowing and all seeing. And yet, if that is to be the case, he presents us with a paradox in whatever he puts out. And so that paradox is either you are indeed a middlebrow midwit who is not aware of these grotesque injustices being carried out against young boys in the Boy Scouts, or you were somewhat aware of the entire structure and the nature of the Boy Scouts and what its purpose was for, from the beginning, from the original pedophile, who's Lord Baden-Powell, who started the racket, to enhance, basically use it as a control mechanism and a militaristic enhancement. And you know so much about everything else, including a church you joined only a few years ago. So one would think that if you were everything you say, then you would be aware of all this backstory to the Boy Scouts from day one, and you would have acted accordingly. But no, he's done nothing. So you have Macrobius in this situation. Either he's a traitor or he's a fool, and that's the bottom line, and that's the dichotomy, and that's every question or everything that emerges that comes up in Macrobius situation leads us to either there's a fork in the road there, and you can either take either one, but I think at some point they both converge. The fork may be here, but up the road, both of those roads that fork off converge up here. So I thought I would do that broadcast as a special basis, as I said, because this is really, it's egregious. It is just too much for anyone to contemplate, to imagine that a man would say, look, we conservative men, we recognize each other. We are a cabal amongst ourselves. We are the looks, and we exchange these looks, and we flick our ears and we tap our noses, and it's all we act just like Jews, as a matter of fact. And it's funny because if you remember back, it's funny going down how bad things have gotten. We've now entered a post-Cook era wherein the really masculine guys were the ones who basically allowed their wives to cook them the most. But and this is where Macrobius' whole background is from. This is where people remember. People remember an attack by Zog. Macrobius was doing black magic to forestall this broadcast, but we're getting to the best part here. And no attacks by Zog's black magic, by Macrobius's fake Christianity, which somehow involve getting divorced and remarrying. I'm not drinking that. Sweet tea, I'd rather die.
Not sweet.
I know, it's for the I'm almost done. It's one thing to get divorced, but to get remarried after that is unacceptable. That's totally beyond the theology of any accepted Orthodox Christian. So, despite a vicious attack by Zog and Macrobius's black magic, you don't seem to understand that Macrobius is the Grima Wormtongue, of the Circle of Crust. And I have chosen to expose him. And I will continue to expose him and his foolish remarks and his fraud and all of his conniving in the near future. Now, we do have some good broadcasts coming up. I've got one called Mamsers, Mongrels, and Other Misbegotten Creatures, which I'm looking forward to doing, in which I talk about hybridization and why you shouldn't miscegenate, and obviously why people who miscegenate should be killed. And hopefully that will be a good broadcast in the near future. And we have another half of my great magnum opus of denunciation of Macrobius and his acts of just his reprehensible acts. And that will be coming up soon. And I'm looking forward to delivering the finale to that broadcast. But in the meantime, I will say hail victory and long live death. And we're going to call it a night. I want to get a